step up and fill the gap created. So I want to talk about why it's possible to think about money in that way, how you would go about thinking about money in that way, and how that would change your perspective on what kind of monetary system is desirable. We just came from the studio where I was talking to Wendell Jones, where that was the point I was trying to get across, that it would be desirable for the Bahamas, for the citizens of the Bahamas. The tax authorities and the central bank of the Bahamas may feel differently, but it seems to me it would be desirable for the citizens of the Bahamas to have as much choice as possible in what kind of money they want to use, and fewer restrictions in what kind of money they can bring in, bring out. So that's what I'll get to at the end. I have a clock in my pocket so I can keep track. If you start at the beginning, the first question is, well, what is money? And I said I wasn't going to be too technical. So money is anything you accept in exchange in order to turn around and use in a later exchange. So you agree to be paid in it because you can spend it later. So it makes it a little different from other goods because you're not accepting it in order to eat it or consume it or wear it. You're not accepting it in order to plant it in the ground or make something else out of it. You're only taking it so that you can get rid of it later in exchange for the stuff you really do want to consume. You really do want to eat, you really do want to wear. Right? So that kind of role that you accepted in order to trade it away later, we call a medium of exchange. And if everybody in the economy uses the same good as a medium of exchange, then you've got money. You've got a commonly accepted medium of exchange. So how did that come about? How did people figure out that this was an advantageous thing to do? And how did they figure out what good it should be that serves as money? And in different economies around the world throughout history, there have been different goods used as money. Right? In some places, shells were used as money. In some places, oxen were actually used as money. Barley was used as money. Salt was used as money. So different economies converged on different things. But how did they converge on it? And why did they start using something as a medium of exchange to begin with? If you think about an economy before monetary exchange, you just have a system of barter, right? You go to market with, I don't know, suppose you grow coconuts. You go to market with a wheelbarrow full of coconuts. If you want to go home with a plaid shirt, you got to find somebody who's selling plaid shirts and who wants coconuts, right? Because otherwise you don't have a trade. Trade's got to be good for both of you. So you need to find somebody who has what you want and wants what you have. Right? And that can be difficult to do. Modern example, we still have barter in marriages, right? You want to find a husband or a wife, you have to find somebody who not only has what you want, they have to want what you have, right? Maybe easy to find somebody who has what you want, they may not want what you have. You may find somebody who wants what you have, you may not want what they have. Right? So it's got to be mutually beneficial in order for it to get going. So that's a problem in barter. When you come to market with your coconuts, the guy selling plaid shirts doesn't want coconuts. You can go around and find other people selling shirts, but here's what you could do. If he says, I don't want coconuts, you could say, what do you want? And if he says, well, I want to be paid in, give me an example.
Bananas.
I want to be paid in bananas. Then you think, okay, if I can find somebody who will take my coconuts for bananas, I can then take the bananas back to the guy selling shirts. Right? In that case, bananas would be your medium of exchange. You took the bananas not because you wanted to eat them, but because you wanted to trade them away. You knew that somebody else would want them. So once people catch on to this, people who come to market figure, well, the first thing I want to do is trade for anything that is more likely to get me what I want, something that's more widely accepted. So you have to have an eye out for what other people want. Right? So there's a kind of social aspect to it. You have to think about what other people want if you want to trade successfully with them. So people adopt a medium of exchange, and Maybe different people adopt different things. Some guy discovers that salt works for him, somebody else it's bananas. But one of the things you want to keep an eye out for is what other people are using as their medium of exchange. And if there's a lot of people using salt and you're one of a few people using bananas, you're probably better off taking salt, because now you got a bigger group of people to trade with. And so in that way, the market converges. So it didn't take anybody dreaming this up from the beginning and saying, oh, barter is inefficient, we need to come up with a new exchange system, and then trying to convince everybody. It arose spontaneously. It arose out of the market, just people trying to solve their own everyday problems. People adopt what is more commonly used by others, and it converges. In the United States, I use the analogy of a snowball rolling down a hill picking up snow, but that probably is not quite so familiar here. But it sort of gathers momentum on its own going. Okay, so that's the emergence of money out of barter, and it's a market-driven process. It didn't take any wise king to invent money. I mean, there are some historians who think that that's the way money came about, and what's their evidence? They look at ancient coins, and it's got the king's face on it. Well, but you're a few steps ahead. Money had already emerged at that point when the kings decided to take over the production of money. So historically, what emerged through this process, right, where we went from barter to a commonly accepted medium of exchange, was lots of different things in different economies, depending on what was available and what was useful in those economies. So like I said, shells, some places, foodstuffs, some other places. But what was it by, say, 1900? What was the commodity used as money everywhere, just about everywhere in the world?
Gold.
Gold. Gold or silver. So what was it about those commodities? Well, they had certain features that made them useful. I mean, the commodity usefulness of them is jewelry, basically. People like to wear them, which was also true of shells. There wasn't much else you could do with those. But besides being popular, besides having a commodity use, they were relatively precious, which meant that you didn't have to carry around a big bulk in order to make your transactions. You know, you could use rice as a medium of exchange, but it would take a whole wheelbarrow full of rice to buy something that would only take a few pieces of gold and silver. So they were more portable. They were easy to make change with. You can just cut a piece of gold in half. You can melt it back together, so that's can be useful. And they were relatively uniform. I mean, in their pure state, gold and silver are pure elements. So you don't have to worry if you can trust the purity of the gold you're being offered, whether it's high quality gold or low quality gold. When it's pure, there's only one quality. But how do you know it's pure? Well, that was a problem, and that was a problem solved by coinage. And it wasn't until coinage developed in ancient Greece that gold and silver kind of drove out all the other commodity monies, that salt money and shell money and so on began to disappear around the world. And parts of the world that came into contact with other economies using gold and silver decided, well, that's more convenient for us. And so it was sort of by acclamation, if you like. It's by decentralized decisions of people wanting to use the money that's most convenient for them that you got these adopted. So it wasn't any world government that imposed the international gold standard. It was a kind of survival of the fittest, a competition among the commodity monies. Right? So now we've got a monetary system that's a little more sophisticated. People are using standardized pieces of gold and silver. And what coinage does is certifies that this is 1 ounce of silver, and silver is, say, 95% pure. You actually don't want it 100% pure because then it's too soft. That's especially a problem with gold. You need to mix some other metals in with it. I'm sure you've heard the term pound sterling. Right, that's the British monetary unit, but originally a pound sterling was a pound of sterling silver. Sterling is a certain alloy of silver with a couple of other things to make the coins harder. Right? So there wasn't any world government that imposed the international gold standard. It was a convention that emerged because it was useful for people.